this is a great opportunity to raise prices that we might not have for some time. So I definitely would take advantage of it if you can.
Welcome to Strength in Numbers. I'm Joe Brown, Director of Business Development here at PCO Bookkeepers. I'm here with Cyrus Ahmadi, Senior Client Manager and CPA at PCO Bookkeepers and M&A Specialists. Today, we're going to be talking about something every operator is feeling recently, Cyrus. I'm hearing it a lot. It's rising fuel costs. And most importantly, all right, what do we do about it, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about. My first question for you, Cyrus, is if you're President Trump, what do we do in the Strait of Hormuz? How do we get that down?
Dude, what kind of question is that? That's crazy.
I'm just kidding.
All
I'm
right.
just kidding. I had to start out with that. No, but really, like, what are you hearing from our clients when it comes to rising fuel costs? Like, is it a concern of theirs? Like, what are you hearing?
Yeah, no, so it's definitely a good question, and first and foremost, just want to say thanks for having me on. It's obviously a timely topic to go over, and it's honestly probably one of the most things clients are asking about right now when we're doing our report calls on a monthly basis. So Um, honestly, definitely a mix of panic, but also some clients who aren't even really realizing the impact and kind of the numbers. And the reason being, and we're going to get to it, is operational efficiency too, right? So first and foremost, when we're going over the P&L and L and we're looking at it, fuel cost definitely needs to be a separate line item on your P&L so that way we can track it. A lot of owners are looking at it and dialing into their fuel line monthly, quarterly over the last few months, kind of tracking it from there. And typically we're seeing these costs somewhere between 2 and 3%, but maybe they're going up to 4 or 5, right? I've definitely had some interesting conversation with clients and what we've seen so far, and it's ultimately going to lead into our next discussion about some price increases. So
So benchmark like 2 to 3%, it going up by 1%. Like, does that really move the needle? Like, is that big? Like, how important really is it?
it can be, right? So for a quick example, let's say we're doing 100,000 in revenue and we go up 1%, it's $1,000 off your bottom line, right? So it definitely can make a pretty large impact inside of your business. So I think the biggest thing is coming down to route efficiency, right? Tracking and actually looking at your fuel costs individually. One of my recommendations that I would have for that would be working with a particular fuel card.
I guess like how do you help evaluate it for clients ultimately? And like what do you recommend? Like is it operational efficiency or like what are really your options and like the pros and cons of each of them? And is there one that you recommend more often too?
Yep. So one of your options, right? I guess we can kind of what I would recommend is we really have three options, right? We have one, do a fuel surcharge, right, on each individual line item or invoice when you're going to those customers. Two is you can bake in a price increase to your overall monthly or quarterly billing. And three is review route efficiencies and trying to reduce some of the windshield time so that way your tech utilization is actually going to go up a little bit to kind of help you out in some of those costs. So the first one, the fuel surcharge, right? I'm personally not a big fan of separate charges on my invoices. I don't know about you, Joe, and what you think overall on that.
Like when the grocery store charges me a charge for my credit card, I'm not going back to that grocery store and finding a new grocery store, even if it's cheaper. I'm just mad that
Yep.
they put that in there.
So
They,
I'm definitely similar on that. I would actually just rather have people overall increase their prices than show me a separate line item knowing I'm getting charged 3, 5% or whatever it may be for a separate surcharge. The pros and cons with doing a fuel surcharge is the pro is obviously you're eating some of the costs that you're seeing monthly, daily with some of these new fuel charges, right? You're actually recouping some of that cost by passing on the cost over to the customer. The cons with that is when fuel prices ultimately go down, we're going to have to remove that, or you're going to start getting some questions from clients, right? So moving into the second strategy is overall price increases. So I think this is one of the first times that we've probably seen since COVID where there has been a dramatic need and desire for price increases. And it's honestly, I would look at it as an opportunity where now with these increased costs, you have an option to therefore pass along the costs and increase your prices more than what we've probably seen over the last couple of years. So the pros to doing a price increase monthly, quarterly is one, the charge is probably going to be a little bit smaller if you're billing customers like that monthly, quarterly. And two, when costs do go down, we really don't have to remove that cost, right? It's kind of baked into our pricing. Therefore, we should be more efficient at a later date.
So yeah, but if you do a price increase, right? Like, is it just across the board, everybody's getting 1%? Because I saw on my P&L that my fuel went up by 1%. Like,
Yeah,
how do you go about that, right? Or is it just because this one's further? Like, how do you judge ultimately this one's further away from your territory and this one is not, you know?
yeah, rather than kind of doing an individual charge like that, I definitely would look at it more of like something across the board. I wouldn't just do, one, two, three, whatever it is percent. I would probably do a little bit of digging and see how much more it's been affected you in your particular area. I mean, overall, we've seen gas prices probably been up about 50% since January, right? I think I was doing a little bit of research before, and like the average cost was somewhere between like 230 or 240 earlier in the year across the country. Now it's in the mid fours. So it's definitely impacted our clients significantly. So, that being said, you got to look in a little bit more detail and see actually what your service area looks like. Some people are going to be driving a lot more than others. And then also this kind of ties into the lawn piece, right? Um, Lawn is going to be running
Yeah. Is
definitely.
there a difference really with lawn and pest when it comes to fuel?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be. It's more of probably like this different animal is kind of what you can say, right? And in the lawn side, you're going to definitely have heavier loads, more pieces of equipment, ride-on mowers, things like that. So you're definitely going to be spending a few more percentage points in the overall fuel section there. So it's definitely going to be impacting our lawn clients more than just pest.
Got it. Another question that I had, because I hear like a lot of pest and lawn companies, right? They sometimes are looking at like fuel efficient vehicles, like the Ford Maverick is one, right? Like electric vehicles, right? Is there Do you suggest them do the same thing ultimately because it's like a free pass to increase it a little bit, even though it might not affect them quite as much because they're not using as much gas? Like, what do you recommend with those?
Yeah, so I think with the electric vehicles, it's definitely something that you would need to adapt as an overall company, right? It's not something you probably want to be half in and half out. There's definitely a lot of upfront costs that you're probably having with those, like where you're charging it, installing like an office location where you can, charge your vehicle at your office or things like that, right? It also plays of where you're located in the country too. Really, outside of cities and more rural areas, you're probably not going to have that ability to charge vehicles so frequently that you can in some of the higher dense city areas, right? Definitely to your one question that you had regarding the prices with clients who are adopting that new model of Mavericks and these electric vehicles, it's definitely not impacting them as much as we're seeing the other guys that are just running typically just all the fuel, right? That's what I would say regarding on that. There's definitely some pros and cons with it as well, from a maintenance perspective and fleet availability. And, you know, you have a lot of upfront costs. Again, changing your fleet, you're going to be rewrapping and doing a lot of those costs for some of your vehicles. So it's definitely important to look into before just making that jump, right?
So ultimately, you're saying it's really don't ultimately jump into it just because fuel costs are going up. And it's more like
Yeah,
if you decide to go that route, it needs to be a strategic, long-term decision to do
exactly.
that. Like,
Yeah.
got it.
But, that being said, I would definitely say there's more popular now than not, right? The Mavericks. It's definitely probably one of the most popular vehicles that I'm seeing that clients are purchasing. And definitely it's impacting their P&L even prior to the fuel costs going up, right? Fuel's definitely, for those clients, I've seen fuel underneath 2%, right? Which is spectacular. So there's definitely some pros and cons, but like you said, Joe, you got to do some research into it before just making that jump. And then your one question that you had with clients that aren't ultimately impacted so heavily with the fuel cost, should they still do a price increase? My answer would be yes, right? Back to the point I said earlier, this is a great opportunity to raise prices that we might not have for some time. So I definitely would take advantage of it if you can. It's definitely something where you can kind of get an extra couple points or some more money going to the bottom line for you with doing a price increase.
Are a lot of clients like just doing nothing too, kind of riding it out and like maybe take a hit a little bit now because, and also are those clients in a different situation? Like, are they running a really high gross profit margin? So while it eats into it a little bit, like what are the clients that aren't doing anything? What do they kind of look like from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, the auto fuel is definitely creeping up for those, and I've heard some interesting. I've had some kind of interesting conversations with clients over the last couple of weeks regarding the fuel prices, with people not realizing how high their fuel bill can actually go on these designated gas cards, right? Things like that. Just being able to just jump up and kind of reaching their limit earlier in the month than they've ever been used to, right? So there's definitely been some major impacts with it. I mean, like I said, the benchmark margin really should be somewhere between 2 and 3%. And our recent cost study, our overall auto category was less than 6%, right? And now I'm definitely seeing that creep up. I wouldn't not act, right? We definitely need to change a process because it's ultimately going to impact your bottom line and profitability for this year. Because who knows when it's going to come down and how long it's going to go on, right? So if we don't take action now, we might not have the results of where we want to be for the rest of the year. From what I've seen, again, kind of what we've talked about, I've seen clients do the surcharge, and I've seen clients also increasing their prices across the board. It just depends on, the individual and the client, and how they want to relay that information to their clients.
Do you feel like, do clients get more calls from customers when they're doing a fuel surcharge or a price increase? You know, because if they don't need to spend as much time explaining, like which one ultimately are you seeing have more of a time impact, on the business?
I think it all depends on what your service agreement is like, right? And if you need to relay information to the client regarding price increases, most people do, right? Whether it's a letter or letting them know prior to them coming out. I would say that you're probably going to get the same. I don't know too much, not being on the ground and kind of relaying this information to my clients overall. But so to answer your question, Joe, I don't really know the exact answer, which way it'll go either way. I think just important is your clients the best and how to relay that information over to them.
Got it. Yeah, my gut tells me that if you increase my monthly by 1% or you put a line item that says fuel charge, it's almost like buying a car, how they add all
Yep.
of those things. I'm looking at everything trying to knock it. I'm also in the market for a car right now, so that's why I've
Yeah.
been going back and forth with that, which I hate. But like when I see that line item, I'm like, all right, let me call about
Yeah.
this compared to an overall, and this is just me personally, like if it goes up by 1%, like that, like a dollar, that doesn't really,
Impacted too
I'm probably
crazy.
not calling about that. But if that dollar says for fuel, I'd be like, no, 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 you have to drive to my house either way.
I mean, it kind of all goes down to the way monthly and quarterly billing, right? Rather than just billing upon completion of the service. When you're increasing people and you're doing a monthly billing, it's only going to go up a few dollars, right? Not the impact's not going to be
Yeah.
crazy if you're doing like an annual billing, or like I said, if you're just billing upon completion. Um, so that's definitely kind of gives you another opportunity to move that way if we're not doing it already. It's definitely something that we've seen the industries more adopt that model.
Thanks, Cyrus, for breaking this down for us. If you're curious about your fuel costs or any part of your business compared to industry benchmarks or need CFO level guidance when it comes to things like this that pop up in your business, that's what PCOB does every day for our clients. Get in touch at PCOBookkeepers.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time in Strength in Numbers.